Hello, hello, welcome to season 4 of How to Play D&D, the explainer podcast with one experienced dungeon master and one failed scriptwriter to discuss D&D topics. My name is Kinsey and my illustrious guest this week is Dan of D&D Made Easy. Did I say that all right? Or D and
Yep,
Easy?
yep.
Yeah.
D&D made easy because I'm Dan and I put my name in my business names.
I mean, it's smart. It's smart because I read it, then asked you your name and you told me. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That's perfect. Perfect marketing. There we go.
Yeah.
So on this season, we are teaching new DMs a couple of things throughout the season. What topic did you select?
Collaboration.
Let's get to it. Okay, so today's episode is on collaboration in D&D. Collaboration is something of a skill because sometimes you just want to blow your load without thinking about working together in order to have a better overall experience. Wouldn't you agree, Dan?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. It's never nice, is it? It's never nice to work with me. Dan, I've spent the last 6 months secretly filling my parents' living room with Diet Coke and Mentos. When's shit likely to go down? What am I doing?
I have no idea what you're doing, Connor.
I don't. I'm having a mental fucking breakdown, is what I'm having, I think. Right, to the actual serious questions then. What would you consider collaboration in D&D?
I think that the role-playing experience is innately collaborative.
Hmm.
Um, all of it is, but you can jump more into it or less into it. And some systems are much better for encouraging more collaboration. So you have your you have the typical you know, dungeon master is narrating a story, creating a story, and the players are going through that story.
Hmm.
But you can also make it much more collaborative by making players part of the story. So, of course, elements of the story are going to be uh, determined by the players.
Yeah.
But in a typical game, that might just be what the players actually choose to do. It might be their backstories and some NPCs that they've met, and they are, kind of transplanted into the campaign because of because of the character that they're playing.
Yeah.
But I think collaboration really is when the players have a more direct impact on the world. So you have let's say you have a spare moment. You're not sure what to do as a DM. So we all get a little, a little anxious when we don't know. Something comes out of the blue,
Hmm.
and then we'll typically sit back and, stroke our beard if we have one and think, okay, what do we do here? Well, if you're stuck, why not just ask one of the players around the table? Get them to, help you out and create the scene together.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we've talked about it before on the podcast where sometimes even just like you don't know all the rules, right? And sometimes it's okay to look at the rules or even ask players because sometimes there's likely one person at the table might know that rule more than you do. And it's the same with collaborating. I think it's okay, like you just said, to not know everything. And arguably 90% of D&D is it's kind of happening in the moment and you kind of react to it and go forward, right? So it's absolutely fine that someone else on that path who happens to be in your game can also offer something up to the moment. Um, yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. I think also from what you said there, it made me think about the fact that you can plan and plan and plan in D&D, but 90% of the time it's just a case of you set something up, there will people with different opinions, different ways of thinking, and ways of going about kind of executing an idea, and you won't have that same brain. So you do have to kind of work on the fly, and you collaborate more than you think. Quite often, you think you're the DM, you've done all that work, they'll just follow what A to B, and you kind of forget that actually they're really kind of running that train to the end of the track, because they're doing things and you're having to think of it on the fly. So it's more collaborative than we kind of put forward. And I guess we'll go into it more in a second, but I'm just having shower thoughts now. But yeah, I guess then the planned collaboration is where it becomes more tactical, right? You've done the kind of on the fly, didn't realize it was happening, and then there's a whole other level of collaborating where there's thought in it. Um, okay, so the second question is there a good time to talk about collaborating on certain things with players as a first time DM?
Okay, if there's a specific time to talk, I think there you go into if you're going to begin a game with a group, then you want to have a session zero.
Mm,
You want to make sure that everyone in the game uh, is working together, collaborating. You have similar expectations on the game, and you're aware of what those are. And that is really important as fuel for the
mm,
GM to run the best game for everyone and also for everyone at the table. So you have the typical safety tools of lines and veils and things like that, but also just, I mean, we can run D&D, we can run it futuristic, we can run a Spelljammer campaign, we can run it prehistoric. At the moment, um, there's a really big Kickstarter about dinosaurs. We can do all sorts of time periods. And I personally really like high fantasy D&D, but if all of the players at my table prefer a sci-fi feel, then why not run that? I
mm.
think, every game it's about maximum enjoyment for everyone. So that should really be a discussion.
Yeah, I think that summarizes it better than kind of any answer I've had on the podcast, I think, is time and time again, it's all about having fun, regardless of the situation, If it's a yes or a no, usually it's a yes because does it lead to fun? Why are we here? Why are we playing, giving up the time, whether that's as a DM or as a player? So I think that really summarizes well kind of why the podcast exists to teach, the next question is how can new DMs get their players more involved in that collaborative process? So, if you are a new DM, you kind of quite likely when you are a new DM, you probably don't know all the rules. You don't know where to start, but you just want to play with a group, get friends together and kind of have a swing at it. How do you get other people involved that doesn't feel like they can just take over?
Yeah, so it's going to be something that you cultivate over time, right? But I really liked, are we allowed to talk about other systems on this podcast?
Oh, absolutely fine. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
D&D is kind of
okay.
like the we're teaching people the beginners way of kind of, it's like the what's it called? The introductory drug of
Yeah.
of good.
Yeah. Okay. So I absolutely loved playing the Dagger Heart playtest.
Right.
And the reason I loved it, you remember what you were saying earlier about preparation. I don't like preparation at
Right.
all.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't like it. I like to do the minimum. And one of the big reasons I don't like it is because if you spend loads of time, and I used to, 12, 15 years ago when I started GMing, I used to prepare, reams and reams of paper about something. But one of two things happens when you do that. You've spent so much time working on it that that is what must happen. It doesn't matter what the players do. So you end up railroading the players, which isn't fun for them.
No.
Or the other one is that you've just wasted loads of time. It's like players will always do something you don't expect, and it will be
100%.
completely left field. So why not just do the minimum?
Right.
And that's something that you will cultivate in yourself as a GM to be, more improv. But let's get back to the collaboration aspect of it. So
Mm,
in Daggerheart, the um, the system itself says the role of the GM is like a storyteller. You just say, here's this thing, but you are encouraged to ask questions.
mm,
And that is, you say, okay, we enter a field, and then you ask, Connor, what is unusual about this field?
Mm,
Right? The system itself says you should do that. You should do that all the time. And it's interesting where you draw the line on that because you want to put certain things in and you don't want to give too much away to the players because
yeah.
otherwise you might not have a narrative, right?
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing to do that. And the more that you become comfortable with it, the more interesting the stories that you'll have. And more importantly, the more the more ownership of the stories, the narrative, all of the players around your table will have.
Mm,
So when I did this, when I ran a game of Daggerheart, and it could be any system, right? It's just collaborative role playing. When I ran that, it was very simple. The players made characters, and part of the character creation there was that they created connections between their characters, including some NPCs. And then I just said, okay, so we get together. What kind of experience, what kind of story do you want to have? Is it extermination, protection, exploration, retrieval? Just some like really high level prompts.
mm,
And with the, very little information about NPCs and environments, we went and we had an amazing adventure.
mm.
And the key thing there is it ended up completely crazy, and it was something that I couldn't create. So the party ended up on a hunt for Dogs McStuffin, who was an evil Chihuahua wizard who'd set up the cult of the Dog Emperor, right? And
Classic.
I'm a high fantasy guy, right? I don't make stories like that. I make
Yeah.
stories with demons and devils and goblins. I don't make that, but the players do
Mm,
because it's collaborative. It's great.
mm. And so it's not on here, but we've met because of kind of the work that you do and how we both were kind of like, hang on a minute, that meme of two people going past each other in the car and be like, you're kind of doing similar things to me. You help facilitate people learning through kind of like quite often physical products. How can you go into that a little bit and kind of what you've got coming up? That kind of covers collaboration in some way because a lot of what you're doing is does that exactly that.
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel. I have some long form and short form videos on learning how to play D&D. I hope I try to be entertaining while doing it.
You are. Yes,
And yeah,
you're
we're
right.
very much in the same vein there. Um, I also love giving people the encouraging people to craft more because I one day I woke up, I started crafting, and then I just felt a lot better in myself for doing it. So I encourage people to craft more. I've made various products that help people play D&D, become more immersed in it, but they all always have, yeah, or some of them really help you to play. So I have a character journal you can print, for example, and it has rules reminders and things like that to help. I'm currently working on a Kickstarter, which is live at the moment, and that is to help people craft cards, GM screen hangers, little trackers and towers for their player characters so
Mm.
that everyone at the table knows who's playing and initiative can run smoothly and things like that.
And how does that work in terms of collaboration? So they can craft these items themselves, but we talked just before we started recording the podcast about for instance, you have the initiative tracker system where you could be running that whilst the GM is organizing other pieces, right? And kind of getting the miniatures on the table and whatever a GM does when it comes to someone else running that initiative. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the things as a GM that I'm always interested in is reducing the amount of admin that I need to do
Hmm.
because, you know, as the GM, you're the one with the most, the most you need to be on form all the time
Yeah. Yeah.
because when you're not on form, the table halts, right?
Yeah.
It's always about you. So anything that you can turn over to the players for them to handle is great. So yes, with the creations that my Kickstarter helps you make, that includes GM screen hangers where you can hang up the initiative. It includes and then everyone can see it all the time, and people don't need to ask questions. Oh, am I next, or is my turn in 2 turns?
Mm,
Oh, wait, didn't that? Weren't they supposed to have gone already? Wasn't I supposed to have gone already? I've been at so many tables where that happens, and just having a clear representation of what the initiative is, it's
mm,
important for any table. Also includes cards. So if you want, if you're feeling spicy, you can just draw initiative with cards instead of rolling it. It takes like 5 seconds, and there's so many benefits to it. Lots of systems do that, but
yeah,
yeah, we're stuck in the past with D&D and rolling
yeah.
dice.
We'll get there. We'll get there. When is good for a new DM to like hold their cards close to their chest and stay away from collaborating? Because I know this is about collaboration, but sometimes it is best to just kind of take ownership and be like, "This is kind of, I know what I'm doing here. I'm trying to get you somewhere."
Yeah, I think it's always going to be a personal thing, and you should only go so far outside of your comfort zone and as far as you are comfortable in going. But more collaboration is generally better.
Mm,
When I was playing Daggerheart, though, I did get to a point where I was like, which questions should I be asking and what should I just be deciding? Because you can't just ask questions.
yeah,
You do need to create a narrative, and you can't just leave it up to players to decide outcomes because they will almost always choose the ones that are best for them.
yeah.
You
Of
know,
course they will.
if you and then it becomes boring, right? So if you say you go into a room, what is in the room? And they say there's a chest. And then you say, what's in the chest? There's a magic item. And
Mm,
you say, what magic item is it? Oh, it's the perfect item for my character. Right.
yeah,
Brilliant. But you've just made the campaign boring for
yeah,
them.
yeah.
They don't know it, but they've just torpedoed the fun in the campaign for themselves.
We quite often use the term like read the room, or the phrase read the room is kind of like knowing in your gut, knowing when it's okay to kind of give something up, off like ask for support, ask about that collaborative moment, or kind of know when it's best that you invest the time for the players rather than them for themselves, right? Because 9 times out of 10 they will take the shortcut because they're there to just have fun. But I think it's quite there's a really I can't remember what the cartoon's called, but there's a really famous episode where someone wishes for Christmas every day, and then they kind of get bored of Christmas because it's not special, right? Because they're doing it every day. And I always think of that when I'm writing quite often, where it's a case of like, if it's always good, then where's the challenge? Why are they coming back every week? It needs to be kind of a mix up, and arguably, if you're having those thoughts, then you're probably in the right frame of mind to be going, well, this is where I keep those cards to my chest and I kind of guide them. Um, okay, well, that is all the questions for this episode. I think we got a hell of a lot out there, and I think there's yeah, lots for people to think about. Today's adventure is sadly coming to a close. We're back in next week with the topic: is cement really edible, or are we kidding ourselves? And as always, thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to join in on the D&D action, then please follow us on Instagram at HousePlayDND or check out the link in our bio to join our Discord server. Dan, can you tell us where we can find everything that you do? And I'll put links in the bio to the episode.
Yep. So you can find me at D&D Made Easy on YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, everywhere. And I have a website, dndmadeeasy.com. I have a newsletter there, and if you sign up to that, then you get not only lots of free print at home creations, so colored initiative cards, defenses, like printable defenses trackers, things like that, but also a chance of winning some really neat stuff every month.
Nice. And the link to your website is actually in our link tree as well on our Instagram and our Discord. So you can't avoid him. It's perfect and it's really helpful. It literally Yeah, it's genuinely really good. I've been Connor Kinsey.
And I've been Dan from
There we
D&D
go.
Made Easy.
Good day.